guys, Outcast Penguin here, and wow, that's a lot of views. Good golly. For anybody new, I rebooted the channel last video, and yeah, I guess it worked out pretty good. Huge thanks to anybody returning from that video, both for watching it and for coming back. We've gotten a lot of amazing feedback, and we're really hoping to take it to heart and improve the channel as best we can.
Duly noted and ignored.
We got a lot of likes and a lot of subscribers from that video, all of which I am absolutely stoked about. But honestly, I was most happy to see the comments. People who love the theory, people who had questions about it, and people who disagreed or had their own views on things were all starting their own conversations, seeking to enlighten and be enlightened. And let me tell you, this is what I want from the channel. Today's video isn't going to be quite as long as last time's, but I get the feeling it will be just as impactful, so I'm looking forward to the discussion in the comments this time around. Today's theory is going to take us to the newest game in the series, Echoes of Wisdom. If you haven't played this game yet, you absolutely need to. I mean, this game, chef's kiss. I am not exaggerating when I say that there has not been a game more important for the Zelda lore since Ocarina of Time. And yes, that includes Skyward Sword. The game that literally gave us the origin of the eternal beef between Link, Zelda, and Ganon, the game that explained many of the important Zelda symbols, and the game that gave us the origins of the Master Sword. Well, you know, kind of. Okay, fine. Has it ever bothered any of you that while we do see the origins of the Master Sword in this game, we don't see the origins of the Goddess Sword? Like, it just bothers me that the explanation of where the Master Sword came from is that it used to be another sword, which was another sword, which was yet another sword. Where did that sword come from? It beats me. Maybe it's just turtles all the way down.
I like turtles.
I don't know. I thought we would see the sword get forged, but no, it's just there, waiting for you at the starting of the game. We now know where the Master Sword came from. It's the Goddess Sword, but where did the Goddess Sword come from? Well, that, dear viewers, is what we are setting out to explain today. Anybody who has played Echoes of Wisdom surely recognizes this little buddy. This is the Sword of Might. It's a sword designed by Professor Luberry and wielded by Link against the echoes of evil sprouting from the rifts. The beginning of the game sees it brandished against Ganon in a fight to rescue Zelda from her recurring kidnapper. Unfortunately for Zelda, her punch card would not be punched in this game, as Link once again defeats Ganon and frees her from his wicked clutches. No free ice cream this time.
You of all people know we discontinued that promotion.
However, it seems that this version of Ganon didn't particularly mind, as another rift opens and pulls Link in. Zelda is freed, runs away from the rift, skip ahead a bit, yada yada yada, bam, there. In the first dungeon of the game, Zelda defeats a copy of Link and receives the Sword of Might, which allows her to just ignore all of the game's main mechanics and say, well, I prefer playing as Link, for all of like 30 seconds. Just like with the Goddess Sword, we don't see how the Sword of Might is made, but this time it is at least explained to us. We know that Professor Luberry forged it from Might Crystals, these little blue-green crystals that can be found in rifts across Hyrule, and that can be used to upgrade not only the Sword of Might, but also the rest of not Link's arsenal. The Humble Might Crystal, also known as the Unusual Crystal, is given only 2 descriptions in-game. The first describes it as, quote, an enigmatic crystal that glows faintly. Its surface is covered in rectangular whorls. The second description follows up with, a crystal infused with strange powers. It can be used for upgrades at Luberry's. Anything else we get on this crystal, and indeed the sword it is forged into, must be inferred. And like, yeah, we're a theory channel. Inferring is kind of what we do here. First, let's lay down the premise of this theory and then get into the evidence. I believe the Goddess Sword was likewise forged from the Might Crystals, and this theory will do these 3 things. First, it will seek to prove this by drawing connections between these 2 swords. Second, it will explain why Might Crystals were chosen for the forging of these blades. And third, it will explain what Might Crystals are in the first place. Firstly, the swords in question. If you are an astute observer of the many swords used across this series, you will notice that there aren't really a ton of swords that are considered sacred in nature, but we do very certainly have more than just the two examples. The Four Sword, the Magic Sword, the Phantom Sword, and Locomo Blade, and the Noble Sword are all magical swords with sacred properties to fight and repel evil, and they all feature colors that are extremely similar to one another. No, I'm not colorblind. Let's zoom out a bit. If we take a close look at these swords, we can see that all of them feature either a color of green, blue, or gold. The greens are almost always a teal color, the blues are all quite similar, and the golds are more implied. The games tend to show red, but the official art tends to show gold, so we'll assume it's gold. Notably, the Master Sword actually makes its way through all of these colors as it progresses. So does the Four Sword, starting with green, skip red, moving to blue, and as seen in both A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds, both the Four Sword and the Master Sword end on gold. Though it is admittedly rare for the Master Sword to turn gold, and it only does so on the blade, not the hilt. The Sword of Might also makes this transition from a tealish green to a deeper blue as it gets stronger. But unlike the others, we know for a fact that this is due to the color of the material from which the sword was forged. It is also the only sword we know the materials of, unless I'm mistaken. Let me know if I am, but I don't think I am. That said, it is not illogical to conclude that all of these swords, from the Magical Sword to the Master Sword, were all forged from might crystals, not just because of the visual similarities, and not just because of thematic similarities, but also because they may have all been forged to fight degenerate versions of the same evil entity. At this point, I will have to throw up a spoiler warning. We will be discussing massive spoilers for Echoes of Wisdom that you should see on your own in-game if you have any interest in playing it at all. It literally reframes the entire series and changes one's view on the entire series' lore, theology, and history. It is perhaps the biggest reveal since Ocarina of Time revealed the origins of the Triforce. So if you have any reason to believe that you need to play the game first, I'm willing to take the hit to my retention rate. Stop the video now, go play the game, and come back when you get to the end of the game. Alright, everybody here is either okay with spoilers or knows what happens, so I'm going to continue. Let me tell you, I did not expect this game to introduce the source of all evil and the true bane of the goddesses when I first picked it up, but gosh dang, man. For those getting spoiled right now, a new entity was introduced to the series lore, and it goes by the name Null. Null is a being that came into existence before the world was even formed. It lived in the void, where it was the only thing that existed. But it didn't necessarily stay that way. Living beings and other creations popped into existence, but just as suddenly as they would appear, they would be snuffed out by Null. This angered the three golden goddesses, who created Hyrule specifically to contain and restrict Null. Null wasn't having it, however. He began to tear open rifts and unleash his influence all across Hyrule. As a countermeasure, the goddesses created the Tris, fairies with the important role of protecting creation by closing the rifts. It is mentioned in this cutscene that a great rift was torn in the ground before the goddesses created the Tris, which must have been very early in the timeline. For my money, I think that the first rift is not being mentioned for the first time here. You see, just like the goddesses and the Tris, Null has the ability to create echoes in the form of monsters. I think that this rift may have been his first attempt to get out, which, in this case, partially succeeded. That portion of him escaped from the center of the world through a rift, or fissure, and immediately sought the destruction of the world binding its master. That echo, should my theory be on point, would come to be known as Demise. The Ganon of Echoes of Wisdom is shown to be an echo made by Null, and yet, unlike the many other character echoes in this game, it's never shown that Null has Ganon frozen somewhere in the rifts. What if this Ganon isn't the only one? What if every single Ganon that we have seen up to this point is a reforming of the life energy that Null got out of the rift that day as an echo? What if Demise and Ganon have always, knowingly or unknowingly, been playing second fiddle to Null? We have visual evidence of this as well. In The Wind Waker, Ganondorf gives his reasoning for trying to take over Hyrule back in the adult days of Ocarina of Time. The quote is one of his most famous lines. He tells of how the winds of the desert brought death rather than bounty, and he says he, quote, coveted that wind. This is wildly inconsistent with his actions. Look at Hyrule Castletown after he gets his hands on it. He isn't enjoying the bounty, basking in the wind. He isn't even letting his people into the new land. He is killing everything nearby, even the grass. And look there, under the castle. That's a massive hole forming in the ground. If he wanted this land for his own sake, why is he actively breaking his new toys? I think that knowingly or unknowingly, he is trying to fulfill the desires of Null. After removing the influence of Hylia's reincarnation from the land by chasing out Zelda and getting his hands on the Triforce of Power, he doesn't have a whole lot more to do on the whole Curse of Demise front. And since he can't find Zelda, he moves on to the next step as dictated by his Dark Patron. He begins to tear at the earth beneath his feet in an attempt to free that entity from its confines. If Demise, Ganondorf, and Ganon are all servants of Null, it would start to make sense why the Master Sword and other similarly forged blades are the only swords effective against them. If the Might Crystals that forged the Sword of Might were pulled from the rifts and are capable of destroying Null, which we see they are, then they would make for a worthy implement to destroy his influences as well, which these other swords clearly are. No sword would be powerful enough to destroy such calamitous beings, but those forged from the only materials Null himself fears. If we go back to that cutscene before, with Null devouring created things, you'll notice that those creations are the same color as the Might Crystals and the Sword of Might. I don't think that Might Crystals are just some material. They are, in my theory, the physical manifestation of creation fighting against the powers of destruction. They are the embodiment of the struggle between life in this world and Null. This is what makes weapons forged from them so strong against evil. They literally exist to oppose it. And that also explains why Null is trying to destroy them. He understands that if he couldn't destroy creation, then it would have the power to destroy him. Understanding this, the three golden goddesses sealed Null away, and when their world wasn't enough to keep Null contained, they put up defenses on both sides of the seal. The Tries to maintain the seal, and the goddess Hylia to destroy Null's influence on the outside. Armed with the sacred might of the goddess sword, she battled that part of Null that had escaped its seal, and kickstarted the series as we know it. Finally, the golden goddesses, drained of all their power, stored their primal energy in a relic, the Triforce. They knew that as they had failed to fully contain Null, Hylia may well fail to defeat Demise. So they provided mortals with a way to challenge Demise on their own, if the situation required it. And then, their labors complete, they left the realm and watched over it from afar. And the mortals of the realm were left to combat the evils that dwelt below their feet and in their midst, well equipped, but horribly outmatched. Their foes would overwhelm them in a future day, and Null would escape and continue his tirade against all life. It is also important to note that this would not just be a local threat. Null was a cosmic entity that devoured entire worlds, and the creations that popped into existence were not just found in the vicinity of Hyrule, but all over the world and beyond. Null's influence is likely found all throughout this universe, as is the embodiment of that will that opposes him. This could explain how sacred swords, unique from but similar to the Master Sword, crop up in separate countries, different continents, and possibly even different worlds, like the ocean in Phantom Hourglass. So what do you guys think? Was the Goddess Sword forged from Might Crystals? Are Demise, Ganon, and all of the monsters in these games just echoes of Null? Or is that reading a little too deep into it? Let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe if you liked and subscribed. And I'm looking forward to the next time. I have two ideas for my next video. One is a theory about the Hylian Civil War and the people of Ikana, and the other is actually a step away from Zelda and into Undertale, where I'll give an in-depth breakdown of the song Asgore and how it uses leitmotifs to tell a story about the titular character. Let me know which of these you'd like to see first, but until then, this is Outcast Penguin signing off.